Mia sat alone at a small corner table in the cafe, staring at the tiny balance left in her wallet. $3. $3 on New Year's Eve. She let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head at the irony. Everywhere around her, couples clinked glasses, families laughed over warm drinks, and the air buzzed with excitement. And here she was, sipping cheap coffee, hoping it would stretch until midnight. She had planned to celebrate, of course. She had imagined sparkling lights, the smell of cinnamon and roasted chestnuts, and the thrill of watching the city's skyline burst into fireworks. But life had a way of rewriting plans. Rent was due, groceries had to be bought, and there simply wasn't room in her budget for celebration. $3 barely covered her coffee, and maybe a small pastry. As she stared down into her cup, her heart sank. Around her, people were laughing and sharing stories, their faces lit with joy, completely unaware of her struggle. She felt invisible, like she was trapped behind a glass wall she couldn't break through. "Here we go again," she muttered, spinning the cup between her fingers. That's when she noticed the man at the next table. He was tall, with warm eyes and a kind smile, and he wasn't alone. 2 kids, 1 boy, 1 girl, maybe 7 or 8, were perched beside him, laughing and pointing at something on his phone. Their laughter was contagious, and for a moment, Mia forgot her worries. The dad looked over and noticed her staring. Instead of turning away, he smiled, a small, knowing smile that made her stomach flutter. He nodded toward the empty seat across from him. Mia blinked. Did he really just invite her over? Her first instinct was to decline. She was barely managing herself, let alone stepping into someone else's celebration. But something in his eyes, gentle, patient, warm, made her hesitate. Maybe it was the way his children waved at her with shy grins. Maybe it was the hope she didn't know she was craving. She took a deep breath. "Excuse me, would it be okay if I sat here for a bit?" Her voice barely rose above the cafe's soft music and chatter. "Of course," the dad said immediately. "Come on over. It's New Year's Eve. There's always room for one more." Mia felt a flicker of surprise. A small part of her wanted to run, to hide behind the familiar safety of her solitude. But something about the warmth in that man's voice and the cheer of the children pulled her in. Slowly, she slid into the chair opposite them. The little girl leaned forward first. "Hi, I'm Lily. This is my brother, Max. What's your name?" "Mia," she said, smiling despite herself. The children's friendliness was disarming, their innocence a shield against the embarrassment she felt. "You look sad," Lily said bluntly, tilting her head. "Did something happen?" Mia's throat tightened. She didn't know these people, and yet here they were, peering at her like they could see straight into her heart. She hesitated, then whispered, I don't have much money. Just $3. I couldn't even get a proper dinner." The dad, whose name she would soon learn was Ryan, nodded sympathetically. "I see," he said gently. "Well, lucky for you, dinner isn't the only thing that makes a night special. And lucky for you, we were just about to order dessert." Before she could protest, Ryan flagged down the waitress. Within moments, a small plate of warm pastries appeared in front of her. The children cheered as she was handed a fork. For the first time in hours, Mia felt like she belonged somewhere. As she took a tentative bite, Ryan leaned back and smiled. "You know," he said, "New Year's Eve isn't about how much money you spend. It's about moments like this, sharing, laughing, and being seen. Sometimes the smallest gestures are the biggest memories." Mia wanted to argue, to explain that her life wasn't this simple. But she couldn't. The truth was, in that moment, nothing else mattered. Her worries melted a little with each bite of pastry, with each laugh shared with these strangers who felt more like friends than she expected. Outside, the city lights began to shimmer as the countdown to midnight drew closer. Mia stole a glance at the fireworks reflected in the cafe window and felt a pang of longing. Yet here, at this table, she realized something important. Even with only $3, she was exactly where she needed to be. And for the first time that evening, she allowed herself to hope. Maybe this New Year's Eve wasn't about what she lacked. It was about what she could find, in the kindness of strangers, in the warmth of a shared moment, in the magic that appears when you least expect it. The dad looked at her, his eyes kind and reassuring. "Ready for a little New Year's Eve magic?" he asked. Mia smiled, feeling her heart lift. "Yes," she said, more firmly than she had all evening. And just like that, $3 felt like the start of something far greater than she could have imagined. Mia shifted slightly in her chair, still feeling the faint flutter of disbelief. She had come to the cafe expecting a quiet, lonely evening with just her $3 and a lukewarm coffee, yet here she was, surrounded by laughter, warmth, and a small family who had welcomed her as if she'd always belonged. The little boy, Max, grinned at her with wide eyes. "You have to try the chocolate one first," he insisted, shoving a piece of warm pastry toward her plate. Mia chuckled and took a small bite. The sweetness surprised her, but it wasn't just the food. It was the feeling of being included, of being seen, that lingered longer than the taste on her tongue. Ryan leaned back in his chair, watching his children with a fond smile. Then he turned his gaze toward Mia. "So," he said, his voice gentle but curious, "what brings you out here tonight?" Mia hesitated. How could she explain? That she was broke, lonely, and terrified of spending another holiday by herself? That her friends had all moved on with their own celebrations, leaving her to face the quiet reality of her apartment? Somehow, the words felt heavy and fragile all at once. I just wanted to see the fireworks," she admitted softly. "But I didn't really have a plan beyond that." Her voice trailed off, unsure if she wanted to admit just how bleak her evening had started. Ryan nodded, as if he understood, without judgment. "I get it," he said. "Life doesn't always hand us the plans we want. Sometimes it hands us moments like this instead." He gestured to the table, where pastries and warm drinks created a cozy little bubble of comfort. And sometimes, those moments turn out to be better than anything you could have planned. Mia felt a spark of something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Maybe he was right. Maybe tonight wasn't a failure, but an unexpected chance. She took another bite of pastry and smiled, slowly letting herself relax. The conversation shifted, as it naturally does when strangers begin to connect. Ryan told stories about his children, their school antics, their first attempts at cooking, the funny mistakes they made while learning how to ride bikes. Max mimicked his dad's expressions, making exaggerated gestures that had Mia laughing despite herself. Lily shared her own little victories from the year, proudly showing off drawings she had tucked into her backpack. Mia listened, fascinated by the energy and humor that radiated from this small family. Their laughter was genuine, infectious, and it wrapped around her like a warm blanket. She realized how much she had missed this kind of connection, the kind that wasn't filtered by social media or masked by obligation. Then, as if reading her mind, Ryan asked, "And you? What do you love to do?" Mia blinked. No one had asked her that in months. Her job was all deadlines and stress, leaving little room for hobbies or joy. Yet now, sitting here, she felt the words bubble up naturally. I like to write," she admitted, a small smile tugging at her lips. "Stories mostly. I used to think it was just a dream, but I haven't written much lately." Ryan's eyes lit up. "Stories? That's amazing. You know, kids love stories. Maybe you should tell us one." Mia hesitated, then shook her head. "It's silly." "Nothing silly about sharing a little imagination," Ryan said firmly. "Come on, just one story. For the last hour of the year." The children leaned in eagerly, their eyes wide. Something about their excitement made Mia feel braver. Slowly, she began weaving a tale, a story about a small girl who had only a few coins in her pocket but found magic and friendship in the most unexpected places. As she spoke, the room seemed to come alive. Max and Lily gasped and giggled at the twists and turns, while Ryan's smile widened, nodding encouragingly at her every word. When she finished, there was a brief pause before Max clapped loudly. "Again! Tell it again," he shouted. Lily joined in, laughing and demanding sequels. Mia laughed too, feeling lighter than she had in months. She realized she hadn't felt this alive, this connected, in a very long time. Ryan's voice cut through her thoughts gently.
See, he said.
This is what I mean about moments. You didn't have a plan, and yet you've given these kids something wonderful. A story, laughter, a memory. That's what counts. Mia swallowed, touched by the sincerity in his voice. She had come to the cafe expecting nothing, and instead, she had found connection. She had found warmth. She had found a spark of hope for the coming year. Outside, the city lights shimmered, and the first hints of fireworks began to the skyline. Inside, the small table felt like its own little universe, safe and full of possibility. For the first time, Mia allowed herself to think that maybe New Year's Eve wasn't about the money she lacked or the plans that fell through. It was about the people you meet, the kindness you encounter, and the moments that remind you why life is worth celebrating, even on the smallest scale. Ryan leaned back and smiled at her one more time. Sometimes, he said softly, all it takes is a little courage to say yes, to join in, to share, to be open. And tonight, you did exactly that. Mia looked at the kids, their faces glowing with excitement, then at Ryan, whose kindness had turned her evening upside down in the best way. And for the first time that night, she felt truly at peace. She had come expecting loneliness, but she found friendship. She had come with only $3, but she left richer in ways she hadn't even imagined. The cafe hummed with soft chatter and the occasional clink of cutlery, but Mia hardly noticed it anymore. She was fully immersed in the little universe at the table with Ryan, Max, and Lily. For the first time that evening, she wasn't thinking about her dwindling wallet, her lonely apartment, or the canceled plans she had been dreading. She was simply present, laughing at the kids' antics, feeling lighter with every passing moment. Ryan leaned back in his chair, watching Mia with a thoughtful expression. You know, he said casually, New Year's Eve has a way of showing us things we didn't expect. Like people we didn't think we'd meet, or moments we didn't think we'd have. Mia raised an eyebrow. Moments we didn't think we'd have? She asked, curious. Exactly, Ryan replied, leaning forward slightly. Like tonight, for example. You came in here alone, thinking you'd just have a quiet cup of coffee. And now, well, look around. His eyes flicked to the kids, who were busy creating a small tower of sugar packets, giggling as it wobbled precariously. You're part of this little adventure now. Mia laughed softly, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. I guess I am, she admitted. The thought made her chest feel warm in a way she hadn't felt in months. She realized that sometimes life had a funny way of rewarding openness. Then, without warning, Ryan reached under the table and pulled out a small envelope, sliding it toward her. Mia blinked, her heart skipping a beat. What's this? She asked cautiously, unsure if she should even open it. Open it and see, Ryan said, his voice calm but encouraging. It's nothing fancy. Just a little something to make your night better. Mia's fingers trembled slightly as she tore the envelope open. Inside were 2 movie tickets, neatly tucked with a small note that read, Because every new year deserves a little hope and a little fun. She looked up at him, startled. You didn't have to do this, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Ryan shook his head with a small smile. I wanted to. You've been brave tonight. You shared your story, laughed with us, and just joined in. That deserves a little reward. Tears pricked Mia's eyes. She had expected nothing, and yet here he was, giving her more than she could have imagined. Not money, not pity, but kindness. Real kindness, the kind that made her feel seen and valued. Max leaned over eagerly, peering at the envelope. Can we go see it tomorrow? He asked. His excitement was contagious, and Lily nodded vigorously in agreement. Yes. It's a movie adventure? Mia laughed through the lump in her throat. I'd love that, she said softly. The idea of spending another joyful moment, not worrying about money or loneliness, filled her with a sense of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. Ryan chuckled. See? Moments like these, they're what make the year worth remembering. Sometimes you just have to let a little magic in. As the conversation continued, The kids bombarded her with questions about the movie they were going to see, suggesting snacks, debating seating arrangements, and laughing over imaginary scenarios. Mia found herself joining in, her laughter mingling with theirs. She realized that the night wasn't just about escaping loneliness. It was about connection, about being part of something bigger than herself for just a few hours. The cafe's windows reflected the first fireworks of the evening, bursts of color lighting up the night sky. Mia felt a shiver of awe, not just at the display outside, but at the turn her evening had taken. She had arrived with only $3, expecting disappointment, and yet here she was, enveloped in warmth, laughter, and generosity. Ryan's voice cut gently through her reverie. "You know," he said, "it doesn't take much to change someone's night." A smile, a shared laugh, a little encouragement, and sometimes a tiny envelope with movie tickets. Mia felt her chest tighten. It wasn't just the envelope that mattered. It was the thought behind it. The recognition that someone cared enough to see her, to offer her more than just a seat at the table, to remind her that even small gestures could ripple into something meaningful. She glanced at the children again, their faces glowing with excitement. Max was showing her how to stack sugar packets in a tower that defied gravity, while Lily narrated a pretend story about fireworks and dragons. Mia laughed, realizing that the evening had transformed completely. Her worries hadn't vanished, but they felt lighter, softened by the kindness and joy that surrounded her. The clock ticked closer to midnight, each passing moment heightening the anticipation of the new year. But for Mia, the true magic of the night wasn't the countdown. It was the connection, the unexpected generosity, the reminder that hope could appear in the simplest, most unexpected ways. Ryan leaned back once more, his eyes meeting hers with a quiet sincerity. "This is what life is about," he said softly. "Being seen, being kind, sharing a little joy even when it seems small. That's how nights like these happen." Mia nodded, feeling a swell of gratitude she couldn't fully put into words. She had come to the cafe expecting a quiet evening and left with laughter, warmth, and a memory that would last far longer than the fireworks outside. That tiny envelope and the gesture behind it had transformed everything. As the children giggled and the first shimmer of city fireworks lit the night sky, Mia realized she had discovered a truth she would carry with her long after the evening ended. Sometimes, magic isn't found in money, plans, or perfection. It's found in the unexpected kindness of strangers who see you when you feel invisible. The cafe had grown quieter as the evening stretched on. The last few customers had left, the baristas were cleaning up, and the soft hum of the city outside carried through the windows. But at the little corner table, Mia still sat, smiling softly at the remnants of the night, the half-finished pastries, the laughter that still lingered in the air, and the warmth of two children who had welcomed her without question. For the first time all evening, Mia allowed herself to truly reflect. She thought about how the night had started, alone, worried, and with only $3 in her wallet. She had expected disappointment, a lonely evening of watching others celebrate while she counted coins and regrets. And yet, here she was, laughing, included, and feeling lighter than she had in months. Ryan watched her from across the table, noticing the quiet moment of contemplation. "Thinking about how far you've come tonight?" he asked gently. Mia nodded. "Yeah," she admitted. "I came here expecting nothing. I thought I'd spend the night alone, maybe sulking, maybe leaving early. And now, I don't even know how to explain it. Everything feels different." "That's the thing about moments like these," Ryan said. "They sneak up on you. You think you know how the night will go, but then someone laughs with you, someone shares a story, someone just notices you. And suddenly, your whole evening changes." Mia smiled, remembering the small gestures that had transformed her night. The way Ryan had waved her over without hesitation. The children offering her pastries as if it were the most natural thing in the world. And, of course, the envelope, the movie tickets and note that had made her heart swell with gratitude. "It's funny," Mia said. "I always thought kindness had to be grand to matter. But tonight it's the little things that made the biggest difference." Ryan nodded.
Exactly.
Small gestures often carry the most weight because they come from genuine care. They remind people that they're seen, valued, and not alone. That's what matters. That's what you'll remember long after the fireworks fade. Mia took a deep breath, her eyes drifting to the window. Outside, the city was alive with lights and the faint shimmer of distant fireworks. But she realized she didn't need them to feel the magic of the night. The magic had been right here all along, in laughter shared across a small table, in the generosity of strangers, in the courage to accept connection when it appeared. "Do you know what I've learned tonight?" she asked quietly. Ryan leaned in, listening. "That sometimes life hands you moments you weren't expecting, and those moments, they can mean more than anything you plan. More than any expensive dinner or flashy celebration." The children had grown tired and were now leaning against Ryan, their eyelids heavy but still smiling. Mia watched them, feeling a wave of warmth. Their joy had been contagious, their energy a reminder that life could still surprise you, even when you were convinced it wouldn't. Ryan spoke again, softly this time. "Mia, it's easy to get caught up in what we don't have. But nights like this are proof that it's not about what's missing, it's about what you allow yourself to receive. You accepted our invitation, shared your story, and let yourself be part of something. That's what turned this night around." Mia's eyes glistened. "I guess I've been so focused on scarcity, money, plans, time that I forgot people exist. People who can change your night just by noticing you." Ryan smiled warmly. "And now you know. That's the power of connection. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be expensive. It just needs to be genuine." Mia nodded, thinking about her wallet and her $3 and how irrelevant they felt now. Money hadn't saved her. Plans hadn't saved her. What saved her was the small kindness of someone who saw her, the laughter of children who welcomed her, and the courage to join in despite her doubts. She realized something else too, a determination to carry this feeling forward. To not let life's difficulties blind her to the small miracles around her. She wanted to be the kind of person who could see someone else and offer that same warmth, whether through a smile, a gesture, or a few words of encouragement. As the cafe's lights dimmed in preparation for closing, Mia felt a sense of closure and anticipation at once. The night had started as a reminder of her limitations, but was ending as a promise that life could surprise you, and sometimes the best moments were the ones you didn't see coming. Ryan handed her a cup of hot chocolate, topped with whipped cream and sprinkles.
"For the road," he said.
"Consider it a little extra magic before you step into the new year." Mia took it, her fingers curling around the warm cup. "Thank you," she said simply, meaning more than the words could express. "Tonight, it's changed me." Ryan shook his head modestly. "You changed it yourself, Mia. You said yes.
You joined in."
That's how nights like these happen. For a moment, Mia just sat there, savoring the warmth of the chocolate, the quiet hum of the city outside, and the soft, steady presence of Ryan and his children. She realized she wasn't just leaving the cafe with memories. She was leaving with a renewed sense of hope, a belief in the goodness of people, and a determination to carry the kindness she had received into her own life. As she stood to leave, the children waved sleepily, their little faces glowing with happiness. Ryan gave her a gentle nod, a quiet reassurance that she was welcome anytime. And Mia stepped outside into the crisp New Year's Eve air, her heart full, her spirit lifted, and her mind buzzing with possibilities. For the first time in months, she felt truly ready to welcome the new year, not with anxiety or fear, but with hope and gratitude. The night had shown her that sometimes, the smallest gestures, shared laughter, a simple smile, a few thoughtful words, could change everything. And that was the kind of magic worth celebrating. The city outside glittered like a sea of stars. Fireworks had begun to erupt in the distance, but Mia hardly noticed them at first. She was walking slowly, savoring the crisp New Year's Eve air, replaying the night in her mind. It had started with $3 and a sense of dread, but it had ended with laughter, warmth, and a feeling she hadn't experienced in far too long: belonging. She thought about Ryan, the single dad who had waved her over without hesitation. She thought about Max and Lily, their excitement and endless energy, their laughter still echoing in her ears. She thought about the envelope with the movie tickets, a small gesture, but one that had made her heart swell with hope. For a moment, Mia stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, taking a deep breath. The city sparkled around her, but she realized that the real sparkle had been inside the cafe all along. It hadn't been the fireworks, the decorations, or even the pastries. It had been the human connection, the unexpected kindness that reminded her she wasn't invisible, and the courage it took to accept it. She pulled her coat tighter around herself and smiled, thinking about how fragile and unpredictable life could be. One moment, she was anxious and alone. The next, she was laughing with strangers who had become temporary friends, sharing stories and creating memories that would last long after the night ended. As she walked, she reflected on what she had learned. Life was unpredictable, yes, but the unpredictability wasn't always bad. Sometimes, it brought you moments that were better than any plan you could have made. Sometimes, it gave you strangers who saw you when you felt invisible. Sometimes, it gave you a night that reminded you of hope. Mia couldn't help but think about the metaphorical weight she had carried into the cafe: loneliness, anxiety, financial stress, fear of being forgotten. And now, those weights felt lighter, almost invisible. She had arrived expecting scarcity and left with abundance, not in money, but in laughter, warmth, and human kindness. She glanced at her phone, tempted to send a quick message to Ryan, just to thank him one more time. Her fingers hovered over the screen before she realized something. This night wasn't just about gratitude, it was about carrying the spirit of it forward. She wanted to be the kind of person who saw others, who reached out when someone seemed invisible, who shared a smile or a story without expectation. For the first time in months, Mia felt a flicker of confidence about the year ahead. She thought about the stories she had once set aside, the creativity she had put on hold, and the fear that had kept her from reaching out to others. Tonight reminded her that small steps, kindness, openness, courage, could ripple far beyond what she imagined. She looked up at the fireworks bursting in the sky and let herself smile. Each flash of color mirrored the warmth she felt inside. Each crackle of sound was a reminder that life, like fireworks, could surprise you, could burst into beauty when you least expected it. Mia's mind drifted to the kids again, imagining Max excitedly describing the movie they would see together, Lily already planning the next adventure. She realized that their joy had been contagious, a reminder that happiness didn't have to be complicated or expensive. Sometimes, it was as simple as laughter, shared with the right people at the right time. A gentle breeze swept past her, carrying the faint scent of roasted chestnuts from a nearby street vendor. Mia took another deep breath and let it fill her lungs. She thought about how far she had come in just a few hours, from loneliness and worry to laughter and warmth, from feeling invisible to feeling seen, from despair to hope. She knew that the night wasn't just a story she would remember, it was a lesson she would carry into the new year. Life would have its challenges, of course. Money would run low, plans would fall through, and moments of loneliness would return. But she had learned something invaluable, that even in the smallest gestures, in the briefest moments, there could be magic. There could be connection. There could be hope. As the clock ticked closer to midnight, Mia allowed herself one final thought before stepping fully into the new year. She didn't need grand celebrations, expensive dinners, or flawless plans to find joy. She just needed courage, openness, and the willingness to accept kindness when it appeared. She smiled at the thought of Ryan, Max, and Lily, imagining their small hands waving goodbye, their laughter lingering in the air. She imagined the little envelope with the movie tickets, a symbol not just of generosity, but of faith in humanity, of the reminder that people could be good, even strangers, even on the loneliest of nights. And in that moment, with the fireworks reflecting in her eyes and the city buzzing with life, Mia felt ready. Ready for the new year, ready for unexpected surprises, ready to embrace kindness, and ready to be the kind of person who could make someone else's night magical, just as hers had been. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel small, alone, or worried about her $3 night. She felt full of hope, full of gratitude, full of the quiet, shimmering magic that comes from unexpected generosity and genuine human connection. The new year had begun, and Mia was walking forward with a heart that had been changed forever, carrying a truth she would never forget. Sometimes, the smallest gestures can create the biggest miracles.